Good morning. I'm always intrigued when there's an English word in the vocabulary that is origins is from the Torah, from the Bible. There's a word called scapegoat. We're all familiar with the idea of a scapegoat. But where does it come from? It actually comes from this week's Torah portion. The Torah tells us that on Yom Kippur, the high priest, Aaron, would take 2 goats, and then he would draw a lottery. And one of the goats would be chosen to be an offering to God for atonement for the sins of the Jewish people. And the second goat, he would symbolically place all the sins of the Jewish people upon the second goat. And this second goat was sent off into the wilderness, into the abyss. And the question is, the English word scapegoat, which its origins is from this story that there's a goat that is randomly chosen to carry all the sins, the faults of the Jewish people off into the wilderness. Why is this the ceremony of Yom Kippur? What is the meaning behind it? And ironically, the true meaning of the Torah's lesson is the opposite of what we call scapegoating. You see, Rabbi Soloveitchik explains that in life, we could often look at ourselves and ask, why was my fate such? Why is it that I have these challenges, these struggles, these proclivities, these particular instincts or characteristics that I didn't choose? Or maybe I have some other negative influences in my life, from my family, from my upbringing, that weren't of my own doing. Or perhaps I have some emotional or mental struggles that other people don't have. And I could look around and say, life is like a lottery. I was randomly chosen for this, someone else was chosen for that. And therefore, how could there even be a day of atonement where everyone is judged, when no 2 people have the same life circumstances, no 2 people have the same advantages or disadvantages? So we come for Yom Kippur to discuss our past year's deeds, if we were righteous or not. But everyone has different internal struggles. And therefore, the message of the Azazel and the goats, the 2 goats, is that what to us is like a random selection of what we were chosen for, while others were given different abilities or disabilities, is beyond our comprehension. Why God would give one set of circumstances and another completely more challenging set of circumstances. But yet, despite that, what we do know is that if God gave us these challenges, then what He's asking us to do is to overcome them, to transcend them, to work with what He gave us. And that while to us it may seem like a random lottery, and it's beyond our understanding why people have certain internal struggles and challenges and life conditions, ultimately we have to look within ourselves and say, what can I do with what I was given? How can I play the deck that I was dealt to the best of my ability? Rather than do what scapegoating is, which is to point fingers and say, all my problems in life is because of this person or that person, and therefore I don't have to be proactive in changing anything. All I have to do is sit back and complain and say how unfortunate my lot is that I was born with these negative influences and circumstances. You know, everyone remembers the slap that was heard around the world just a few weeks ago when Will Smith shockingly went up on stage and smacked Chris Rock and then began to curse profanities. And there's been a lot of discussion about it. But what's fascinating is that just a year ago, in 2021, Will Smith put out a memoir about his life. And it was actually titled Will. And in it, he describes the most defining moment of his life. And he says the most defining moment of his life was when he was 9 years old and he watched his father punch his mother across the head so hard that she fell to the floor, passed out, and began to spit blood out of her mouth. And he says he remembers standing there as a 9-year-old child and feeling hopeless and powerless and wanting to stand up to his father and say something, but not having the courage to do that. And he said since that moment, he felt like he was a coward. And he said he decided that the only way he could protect his mother is by becoming the funny man in the family, because he figured as long as he could keep his father laughing and smiling and happy, his father won't be as violent with his mother. And he says, my whole persona, my whole character was developed from that moment of my life. And his parents went on to divorce when he was a teenager, and his father passed away in 2016. But he said, till today, this is what he wrote in his own words in the memoir in 2021. He said, until this day, every act I've played, every role, every character, every bit of stardom and fame and fortune that I've ever achieved in life was all in one way or another an apology to my mother for being a coward and not standing up for her. And he says, my whole life has been about masking and hiding the shame and the pain and not letting anyone know what a coward I felt like. And I read that and I said to myself, maybe, perhaps, what triggered Will Smith was that memory of a loved one being abused physically, in this case verbally, and being a coward and not standing up. But tragically and sadly, unfortunately, Will, even though he detested and despised his father for what he did to his mother, actually reverted to the behavior and the actions that his father took, which was to use violence and force when triggered with anger, rather than have grown from that experience and learned how to not do what his father did, which is to use words to influence and to persuade and to speak up. And not being a coward doesn't mean that you have to resort to violence. But it's true that in life we carry with us different memories and different experiences that shapes our identity. But therefore the Torah says, yes, you may have been dealt difficult, challenging circumstances in your life, but don't scapegoat. Don't do what scapegoating is, which is point fingers for the rest of your life and say, this is who I am, I can't change. Because what the Torah is saying is, despite your circumstances, yes, we don't understand the lottery of life, why one person is chosen for this and one person is chosen for those circumstances. But what we do know is that we can, despite whatever background, upbringing, circumstances we have, we can grow from it in a positive way and become better than what we've experienced and transcend it in a positive way. And that's why in Yom Kippur we have the two goats to teach us that while we don't understand Hashem's ways, Hashem still asks us to work with what we've been given and do the very best we can with it. Have a wonderful day.